Ladies and gentlemen, hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome.
Hello.
To another edition of Changing the Questions. My name is Paul Laporte. That squeaky man in the background is Mike Miner.
Mike Miner.
This is the podcast where we take one single solitary question and we put it under the microscope.
Under the microscope.
We analyze it.
Analyze it.
Through thick and thin.
All right, I'm not going that far. Let's go.
Question today. And this one, very near and dear to your heart, my good friend.
Oh, absolutely.
Will there ever be another Undertaker?
No.
Okay, let me clarify.
That's it. No. I don't care what you say.
Very short episode.
I don't. Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching.
Tune in next time. There's the Scorcho's Twitter handle. Okay, let's break it down.
Okay, so what I mean by this is that the Undertaker obviously just had his big little 25th anniversary shindig where they had like a whole television special dedicated to him.
He was the belle of the ball.
Yeah, and everything like that. And his just maybe a little bit less so this year, but in prior years, just him just being on a show makes it special. And just any time he wrestles, it's an event. It has its own pomp and circumstance around it.
Even back in 2004, they were calling it a special event or whatever it was. Michael Cole would talk it up and say,
absolutely.
This is a special event. The Undertaker's going to be on SmackDown tonight. It's rarely seen event. It's like he's on every week, Cole.
Obviously, you have guys like The Rock and like Austin who still get that kind of legendary status, and they get that fanfare. But The Undertaker really was the only guy who was with that company for as long as he was. He had his little things in other companies, but notably never really anywhere else. He was just a WWE guy from the day he got there till the day he leaves, which still hasn't happened yet, and it's been 25 years. Austin's career was what?
95, 96 until 2003, I want to say.
9 years.
He had the little spat in between.
Yeah, Rock's was a little bit longer. His is about 10 or 12.
Rock's was 96 to, let's say... Oh, man.
We're going to disregard the WrestleMania
It doesn't
matches.
matter.
I mean, just when he really stopped being like a
generally, I'd say probably
guy.
2001,
right.
is the last time he really was active. Maybe 2002?
Well,
2003 at the latest.
No, he was gone after Austin. He stuck around for a little bit longer than Austin
he did the Hollywood thing. He came back for an extended run as far... I think the last real extended run he had was with the Hurricane and around that time period. So
even Shawn Michaels, who we're coming up on, it's been almost 5 years since his retirement. He had a big swath in the middle that he just wasn't there. Even though he was a WWE guy, and he's the closest. The guy who's gotten the closest, other than I guess Kane, but Kane just doesn't have that sort of same rep.
Yeah, will there getting beaten down?
Yeah,
Jeez.
Will there ever be another guy who has that kind of prestige about him and lasts that long?
Howard
more
Finkel.
Importantly.
No, wait, he's longer than the Undertaker. Oh, congratulations, Howard.
Howard Finkel's streak is still alive and well. Will we ever see, like, will we be in, like, 10 years from now talking about, like, 25 years of John Cena or 25 years of Randy Orton? Or are those guys just kind of fall away and then we're going to move on to the next group? Is there ever going to be another wrestler who is going to have that mystique about him, that status and that respect and that longevity? Is there ever going to be a person who is going to have all of those things put together?
The only one I can think of that's even the closest is Andre the Giant, but as far as another performer, I don't know. You've had Bret Hart before he was actually unceremoniously, I guess taken out of...
Well, he left. He got a bunch of money and went somewhere else, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's fair. He was around for quite a while. What, 18 years? That's a mighty long time, and nobody ever mentions that. And you've got Shawn Michaels, who was around for a long time, but like he said, a little space between where he wasn't around, and he had his issues, and
he had about a 5 year layoff.
Yeah, 5 years. 97 to
2002.
No, beginning of 98 to 2002. So, 4 years, 5 years, just about
4 or 5 years.
But either way, I don't think there's going to be somebody else like the Undertaker. Will guys have careers as long? Maybe John Cena if he wants to. You had Ric Flair, but he wasn't a WWE guy. But as far as a WWE performer, I think The Undertaker is going to be the one that is the standard bearer. He's going to be the one to look at as far as longevity goes, mystique character goes.
Okay, here's
Randy Orton, though. Guys are lasting longer these days, so for some reason it seems like. But
Here's the only person I think in the current culture that stands a chance of having that mystique.
Let's
and
see.
you're going to look at me like I'm goddamn nuts when I say
I
it.
might be able to analyze it and say, no, you're right. Let's see.
Bray Wyatt.
I can kind of see it.
Here's why I think this, and here's why I think the Undertaker's status kind of is the way it was for as long as it was.
The character's flexible, too.
Well, here's the thing. Number one, I don't care what you say, Minor. Undertaker's gimmick is stupid.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Okay,
I'm not
okay,
denying that.
Okay.
Dude,
okay.
I love movie monsters. I love old movie monsters,
okay,
and that's what he reminds me of.
So,
and it's just so ridiculous,
yeah.
but it works because the guy that played him, that's performing as him, made it work.
Right,
Nobody
exactly.
else would have made that work.
Exactly.
It's god-awful stupid, but it works.
Okay. So the character, yes, it's the gimmick itself is dumb, but because the guy was so good, and he was committed to it. You don't see a lot of interviews with him out of character. You don't see, he never really did stuff on TV. He had the biker persona, but he was never just like, hey, I'm the Undertaker, I'm washing my car.
It's another facet of the Undertaker is the biker persona, and it's just... So he evolved over time, so that was a big part of it.
That's one of the reasons, is because WWE doesn't have characters like that anymore. I mean, when Undertaker came around, they kind of sort of did. Like, they had, like, Goldust, they had, like, people who had those kind of outlandish personas, or were more kind of cartoonish. And the Undertaker was kind of like one of the last
he was, like,
guys
in
to have...
between,
Yeah, he was the last guy to have, like, a real persona towards the end of that cartoonish era, but then he was able to take that kind of little ball and mold it to what he wanted and run with it. And I think that Bray Wyatt's character is the next closest thing to that, and I don't think WWE is really interested in doing that kind of like supernatural Lucha Underground style beyond the realm of reality thing. I think Bray is like the last guy that has that, and I don't necessarily know if they'll ever, like, when Finn Balor comes up, is he still going to have the demon thing? I think you need somebody who has to have kind of like a larger-than-life, not like just a regular guy character, to have that work.
I think Bray Wyatt could work. It's just a matter of
they got to rebuild.
It's got to be
hard, and they actually have to let him win things.
That's the main issue is.
That's
how are you going to get somebody like that over after he's... I mean, Undertaker's entire first year was basically undefeated.
Yeah,
and he beat Hulk Hogan for the championship.
Yeah,
so
that's
a strong way to push somebody, and Bray Wyatt has not been pushed like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna kind of take a rebuilding of his character, and it's gonna be a thing of like, yes, he's going to need to win a belt. He is going to need to not lose for a very long time, and that's
for a very long time. People were behind Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Very long time they were behind him, but it's just like they keep trying.
So hot when they got there.
They keep trying to push him as a heel, and that's all well and good and everything. But if people want to jump into the cult, I mean, come on, people were singing along with him.
Yeah,
just a year ago, not even a year ago. Maybe they still do. It's just it's hard to watch sometimes, but Bray Wyatt has an ability, and if he has organic character progression over time, then it could work. Finn Balor, I think, is another guy that could be around for quite a while.
I would agree with that.
You mentioned him earlier.
I would agree with that.
That could be not a replacement for The Undertaker, but it's another step in that kind of, that supernatural kind of character, that delving deep within yourself and kind of finding, the demon, so to speak, to help you win and to help you stay on top.
But Finn's a smaller guy.
Finn's a smaller guy, but it doesn't necessarily mean it won't work.
That was another thing.
And Undertaker was stoic.
He was stoic, but he was also huge.
Tall, stoic.
So that's the thing too, is that it's really just like such a perfect storm of attributes of just being a good, being really good with the character, being physically what they want, and being able to, your reputation and your mystique. Maybe Brock is another guy like that, although, he obviously had a huge layoff. But are we going to be talking about, like, Brock, 10 years down the line? Because, I mean, they really are. I guess, we mentioned Bray Wyatt.
If they want to here's the thing. If they want to talk about Brock, they will talk about Brock. If they want to talk about Bray Wyatt, they will talk about Bray Wyatt. If they want to talk about anybody, they will. But it's a matter if they want to.
Right.
Because look at how popular Sable was back in the day. You don't hear a damn thing about Sable these days.
That's true.
So, I mean, if they want to talk about somebody, they will.
But
Brock,
Brock,
I can see them doing.
Like I said, we're looking at like supernatural characters. Brock almost kind of is a supernatural character.
Superhuman.
Right. He is not a normal guy. He is basically
their version of the Hulk.
An
Let's be
avatar of
honest.
death, essentially,
Yeah.
that shows up and is going to kill you unless you were not going to beat him in a straight up fight. They've literally set the tone that nobody in this company can beat him in a straight up fight, which is basically what they did with the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to beat him, you got to have like 5 guys on your side, or you got to like,
cheap shot him and sneak it away.
Pin him
sneak it away from him.
Shove him in a coffin or something like that, and then chain the coffin shut and light it on fire, and then Brock just punches his way out of the coffin.
No, he doesn't even punch his way out. He just taps you on the shoulder from behind, and then he
yeah. So
you kind of look at him.
So Brock might be that guy, but again, if he didn't leave the company, he would almost be there at this point. I think if he hadn't left, but they could have fucked up his character in a lot of ways in that interim, so maybe that big long layoff worked for him. So maybe he won't have like quite as long a career, but he might be looked at in the same way where we're looking at Brock Lesnar wrestling in WrestleMania 10 years down the line, and that's the new big marquee match that isn't for the belt.
I think if anything, Brock Lesnar actually salvaged his own, his own legacy
by bailing.
Not by bailing, but by coming back.
Well, right, but, but he had to leave to come back.
Oh, exactly. And you know what? I wished for so long for him to come back because, even though he was a big name in MMA and he was gone for so long, I was hoping he would come back on mainstream television. And he did. And he has delivered every single bit of the way as far as being on television goes.
Let's not act like his return was completely flawless.
No, it wasn't completely flawless.
That early match against John Cena and the early thing against Triple H, and it was once...
The Triple H stuff I wasn't feeling.
No, once... But
for the most part, it was done right.
Yeah, but once Heyman got onto him, too, that really was what... Yeah, once Heyman had really more of an involvement in his character, because when Brock first came back, he didn't really quite as much. But once he did,
the thing that killed me about Brock though is when he came back, taking that loss to John Cena.
That's exactly
that's what killed me.
That was like match, so that's what I mean by like that was not all roses when he first.
The match
came back.
Was a train wreck. I enjoyed the match. Some people hated it. I enjoyed it. It was kind of a train wreck in the sense that I can't turn away from watching it. It's kind of violent and I miss this kind of stuff once in a while. And this is the time for it. Some people didn't enjoy that, but I enjoyed it.
But
but him losing just was not the way to go.
Here's another thing too, and let me ask you this question: do you think Undertaker would have? I guess it's a little changing the questions, but then we're changing the questions. But this goes hand in hand with the topic that we're discussing. Do you think that Undertaker's legacy would have been as big as it was were it not for Mankind getting the shit beat out of him every night by him? Do you think he would have had as much of a prestige if it wasn't for those boiler room brawls, if it wasn't for throwing Mick off the cell? Like, WWE doesn't do that incredibly violent shit anymore for good reason, and I'm not saying they should, but I think that all of that lent to his character, and they don't do that anymore.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point, and I think he definitely contributed to Mankind definitely contributed to his legacy. There's no doubt. It made him bigger somehow.
And not just Mankind, though, because he had so many people to feud against that were incredible at the time.
Who did he feud against? He feuded against Goldust, and I'm not taking anything away from Goldust. I love Goldust.
Right,
I love Dustin Rhodes.
But that wasn't
a
big money-making feud. But he feuded against Austin for years and years and years. He feuded with Triple H.
Yeah, and that was after Mankind.
Yeah.
And he's probably had a one-off match with Austin, and then, go back into feuding with him a year later, 2 years later. He's feuded with Kamala. People remember that for the coffin match. People remember the feud against Yokozuna, but it's just like, these are the matches he had to go through. Gonzalez. Who else am I missing?
Nathan Jones.
Nathan Jones, yeah, no. Yokozuna. It was King Kong Bundy was another one.
The Executioner.
The Executioner.
Yeah.
Around the time Mankind was feuding with him. And it's just, he's had to go through all these feuds with all these guys, and he still comes out smell like roses. The best part of the matches. And make these guys look like a credible threat. Diesel, another one, And I'm not taking anything away from Kevin Nash, but... Undertaker's Undertaker.
That feud was hot, though, at the time.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of guys to work against, whereas...
Mabel. That's the other one I was thinking of. King Mabel.
So you had a combination...
Look at this. I mean, it's, you got all these big guys going up against the Undertaker. Undertaker has to get these guys to look good, and he I'm not saying they're great matches by any stretch.
But probably
They
the
really
best
weren't.
matches that those
But
guys
the best
have had.
matches you're going to get out of these guys is probably through The Undertaker. The only other person you can think of is Shawn Michaels to put on a match with them that would look good. Halfway decent at least. So, I mean, from Mankind on, yeah, it started really picking up.
Right, exactly. But that's, like I said, again,
Bret Hart was
another
another
part in this perfect storm of you need to have a guy who has the look, who has the gimmick, who has the talent to carry that and the knowledge to evolve it, and then you have to have a roster of people to run him against. And again, we've discussed that I still do think WWE's roster is the best it's ever been, but they've done such a poor job of building up the characters that these guys don't seem important. Dean Ambrose doesn't seem important. Roman Reigns doesn't really seem that important, even though they try and tell us he is. Dolph Ziggler doesn't seem that important. They really do such a poor job of building guys up, whereas back 10, 15 years ago, they had guys who were far less talented, but they did a much, much better job of building up and making them look like monsters and
This
threats
is going
killers.
to sound strange, but I think a part of it, now that I think about it, is these guys now, they look so baby-faced and young. They don't look grizzled, I guess, so to speak, because you get guys that look grizzled and go against each other and they look like they want to murder each other. It lends some credibility to this whole thing. And you get somebody like Dolph Ziggler. I'm not taking anything away from these guys. These guys do tremendous jobs. They're probably some of the best performers that they have ever had. But they don't look completely grizzled, I guess. But hey, I'm probably digging myself into a hole here. I enjoy these guys.
Well, I think that they have some guys who have kind of that look. I mean, definitely.
Undertaker, for example. You put a guy like Dean Ambrose against The Undertaker, who do you think's going to come out on top?
Right.
Who do you think is going to, have less to lose?
So you're saying WWE needs more ugly people?
I wouldn't say ugly people. I say guys that look like they've had some experience and been through the ringer. And it's
Kevin Owens kind of fits that bill.
There you go. And I love Kevin Owens.
I think Dean Ambrose fits it a little bit too. I think that maybe his messy look is a little too messy on purpose, and maybe they need to. I think maybe
I enjoy the hell out of Ambrose. Let me tell you.
Dean Ambrose with a good heel run.
The ladies love him. The guys want to be like him.
Could potentially, like I said, I think Dean Ambrose with a good heel run. He needs to kind of let that dark side out again. But then that could be a guy who would be a good counterpoint in a feud to maybe potentially build somebody else up. I don't know if Dean Ambrose, probably not going to be celebrating 25 years of Dean Ambrose in another 20 years. But
I
wish we will. That'd be awesome.
Like I mentioned earlier, I see Finn Balor. If things go well for him, he stays healthy. I can see him being around for a very long time, and him.
But it's just a question of his size. Will they let a guy who is smaller than a lot of your mid-carders run at the top and stay there for a significant amount of time to let him build up prestige and legacy?
I think it depends how healthy he is, how he draws, the money he makes for the company. It's a lot of things, and I think he can do it. He's capable of doing it. It's just a matter of getting the opportunity and running with it. Him taking the opportunity. But will there be another Undertaker? No, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You want to forge your own. You want to forge your own legacy. You want to carve out your own name. I mean, you see names like Andre, Undertaker, Rock, Austin, Triple H. You remember 13 years ago when you hated Triple H? We all hated Triple H. Now you speak about him and you're like, yeah, he had that run for a year or two and it seemed like forever. But you can't take the legacy away from him. It was a small part of it. It was a small part of his whole career. But, and even today you can hate him. The whole authority thing. But as a whole, he's a very, very important part of wrestling history.
All right, well,
George Hackenschmidt.
Yeah, 50 years of Hackenschmidt. Frank Gotch. Frank fucking Gotch. All right, we're going to wrap this up. We are actually a little long on time right now, so we're going to wrap it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, listening, be sure to leave a comment in the comments below. If you have any questions that you would like us to discuss on future episodes or any feedback on the show in general, you can leave it there. If you're listening to this on SoundCloud or any other podcasting service, you leave your feedback with me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Scorcho, SCORCHO, ding! That's going to wrap it up for us for this episode. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. I was going to scream Ricky Doze on.